Call the meeting to order. Meeting of the Board of Trustees of Batavia Public Library on the 20th of August 2019. Stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Daniel, call the roll, please.
Blodgett, Colada.
Here.
Garrett.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
McKenzie.
Here.
Russo. Here. Smith.
Here. Thank you, Daniel. Item number 4, any comments from the audience? No? Item number 5, approve the consent agenda. On the consent agenda tonight are the minutes from the public hearing on July 16th, our regular meeting also on July 16th, and a closed session of the board also on July 16th. We have the cash disbursement detail report from July. And then other action items include a resolution certifying the 2018-2019 Illinois Public Library Annual Report, otherwise known as IPLAR. Is that correct, George? Number 2, triennial update of the capital asset study. This came to us from the Standing Committee on Facilities. Parking lots, seal coat and striping, also from the Facilities Committee. And a new scanner called Scan EZ, also from the Facilities Committee. So that is all that's on the consent agenda tonight. Does any board member want to take an item off of the consent agenda? Okay. Then I think we need a roll call vote on this one.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. Second.
In the roll call.
Mhm.
Blodgett, Colada.
Aye.
Garrett.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
McKenzie.
Aye.
Russo. Aye. Smith.
Aye.
I read it, so.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, item number 6, I'll need a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
I motion to approve the agenda.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And item number 7, we're going to be educated tonight. It says board education. We're honored to have present with us Ross Valentine, who is the coordinator of our IT department here at the library, and also Eric Rieger, and he is from Webbed Services, which is a company that we have employed. So I think we'll kick it off with Ross.
Right, out here, hopefully got enough here. If there's any, we'll figure it out. Anybody not get one? Dory's got an extra one? Okay.
We'll keep, give one to Michelle for Diane.
Or Diane.
Teddy.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. All right. A little overview. First of all, I've been at the library now for a bit over 5 years. And before I became full-time here, I was 5+ years at Geneva Library. So got some library experience. I've done all of the software installations and except for 2 servers. I've done all of them, done all the workstations, built the physical networks, so I think got a pretty good idea. Or I should say, IT, information technology, it's what everybody is accustomed to calling it. But in the library world, we don't use that because it gets confused with technical services. So, we use electronic services around here, but I still think of it as IT. So, my principal function is to keep the computers and the networks running smoothly. And quite a few years ago, I had a marketing manager tell me, IT is only as successful as its last failure. And you know, sounds kind of bad, but you know, it really is true. It's kind of like, as long as your electricity's working, you're happy. And you know, doesn't work, now I got this problem. So I try to keep it that way. And one of the things I tend to do is I come in early. Most days I'm in here around 6. Thursday mornings I'm in here around 5. And I'm trying to find if there's any problems first of all and get them corrected before other people start coming in. Because it actually takes me less time to do it that way than to be dealing with phone calls. So, you know, better to take care of it early on. So I really do work at trying to make sure that we don't disrupt other people getting work done. That to me is really important. And if I have something that's really super disruptive, I come in here on one of the few days the library is actually closed. Kind of, in the business world, it's kind of actually a little bit easier because you can usually start a project like Friday evening, work all weekend, and if things don't work, you can back them up and get back before Monday morning. We don't have that luxury here at the library. And we also tend to be open a lot more hours than the typical business place, so that also tends to be a little challenging. A couple of Fridays ago, I came in here at like 4:30, a half hour before we closed, and I was here till 11:30 at night because that's the time I can get stuff done without being disruptive to staff and patrons, you know, and they're both important. So the main thing that keeps me awake at night, malware, especially ransomware. And I'm sure everybody here has seen stories about the cities. Just yesterday, a story came out about 23 Texas cities have been hit with ransomware over the weekend. And that to me is like, oh my gosh, you know, the absolute worst thing. The absolute number one thing that can be done to protect that is to is make sure that everything's updated. And the reason is when an update comes out, the bad guys are reverse engineering the thing, and within days, they've got something that's going to take advantage of that. And so, wanted to get patched as quickly as possible. One of the things you always worry about when you're doing a quick patch is it going to break something? You know, a bigger organization has the luxury of being able to have a test lab and test and do all. We don't really have that. But the good thing is, we don't really have a lot of unusual software, wacky software. So we're usually pretty safe on that. So getting updates done is important. And the second best thing after doing updates is having good backups. And so I keep an eye like a hawk on the backups, make sure everything is working, because I want to be able to get back to non-encrypted software. I just saw a thing earlier today that said something about the entities that pay ransom, only about 38% of them actually get a key that unlocks the files and works. So that's like, wow, that's like worse than a coin flip.
So I'm just saying, what do they do in that case? I mean, if they have been ransomed and the key...
Once they've paid it?
Yeah. But I mean, how do they get their system back? Do they literally have to start from scratch, build it up again?
Sometimes, yeah. And you know, we are dealing with criminals in this case.
Right.
And, you know, it's like you can't sue them for breach of contract or not.
You can't find them.
You can't find them for sure. It's because they're hiding behind all kinds of
Pay their
things.
ransom in Bitcoin.
So, yeah.
Right.
So that's the one thing, and one of the things that has been becoming a little more prevalent with the ransomware is it infects, but it doesn't encrypt right away. So it sits there, and then 2-3 weeks later, boom. And the idea behind that is if you have backups, they're already infected too. So,
Can you remind me, does the library use a lot of cloud-based services for,
use what?
the cloud-based services?
I think Webic does for us. We have a server we use for backup. We've got a pretty good history of tapes and a pretty good history of the hourly backups. The hourly backups, we save up to 45 days. So between that, I'm cautiously optimistic. You know, you never know until something catastrophic, which I hope never happens, but you know, that's what we got. So that's the backups. So in addition to patching, and I spend a good bit of time making sure things are patched, you know, checking for patches, applying patches if they haven't been done. And you can see in the graphic there how many patches there have been so far this year. Now, a little caution there, a lot of updates will get superseded later, so it makes it look like there's a fewer earlier in the year, but it's really been pretty consistent all the way through. We've got the July updates done, we're getting into August updates now, so August is a little low, but it's going to be coming up very quickly. And that was as of last Friday, I think, the numbers. So, got to do updates. And in addition to just updates, we also have software being just updated. Many of you have probably heard Microsoft saying Windows 10 is the last version of Windows. It's kind of, I wouldn't say that right, lying, but they're kind of wordplay. Right now what they're doing is they're coming out with a new version of Windows 10 twice a year. And they're still calling it Windows 10. The spring version, they only support for 18 months. The autumnal version, only 30 months. No more of these. And Windows 7 is dead as of January. I've got everything updated except for 2 machines, one for phones, one for the security system, and that's because the software will not handle Windows 10. So we're hopefully, I'll jump ahead a little here. The phone system is as old as this building. It's no longer being supported. The manufacturer doesn't make any more parts, so if anything breaks, we have to get secondary market parts and hope that we can find the parts. So that's really one thing. In addition to doing all the software updates and upgrades, there's hardware as well, and doing phones is going to be an important project we need to get done sometime
Is that in
in the fairly near
I was
future.
just going to say, the new PBX is in the capital asset stuff.
Yeah. The thing about PBX is that they tend to be tanks. They just run and they run and they run. But if it just breaks and you can't get the part, now all of a sudden you're up the creek. And being without phones would be very inconvenient. So don't really want to test that too much. So all the upgrades, all the updates of software, sometimes it feels like you're on a hamster wheel cage, just constantly doing this stuff. But, well, that's just the way the job is. This past May, I finished the upgrade. We got rid of all the Windows 7 stuff for those 2. And what I did was we brought in new machines, replaced they were about 3-4 years old machines mostly that the staff had. And we took those, wiped them, and redeployed them for all the patron machines. That's the patron labs, the OPACs, I guess that's, there's a few other things, but that's mostly for the patrons. And so everything's Windows 10 now, except for those 2 machines that I talked about. So hopefully we'll be okay on that. And then the last thing I have here is that, there's everyday issues. Some of them can be resolved with just a phone call, which, love those easy ones.
Turn it off, turn it back on again.
What's that?
Turn it off, turn it back on again.
Well,
Check to make sure it's plugged in.
like phone call last week was, got a patron here, and he's got a USB stick, and he's trying to put a copy of file over there. And he's got more space than the size of the file, but it won't let him do it. It says not enough space. How big's the file? And it was like 6 gigabytes. And it's probably got that USB stick formatted in FAT32, which is the best because it's most versatile, but it won't accept any files over 4 gig. So what's the solution? Well, reformat the whole thing and lose all the files you already got. NTFS, it's not a good solution, but but it was easy over the phone. We don't have to open a ticket. We do have on the back tickets, and you can see how many have been closed this year and a snapshot of what July was like. And I've been working with Webbit to try to get them to take on and get more tickets closed, but still working on it. So. Questions? Probably left something out I shouldn't, but.
Why the spike in the emails on 8/6? That just is so confusing. What was 8/6? It was Saturday.
That was actually because Webbit had made a change that was triggering automatic emails from our UPSs and UPS's uninterruptible power supply. And I've got them set up so they send me notices. And they made a change, and all of a sudden I was getting a lot. For about a month, I was averaging, I think it was 270 emails just from the UPSs every day.
Oh, wow.
So that was the day I was going through all of these emails. And I can say Weber did get it fixed finally, so I'm not getting inundated with emails from the UPSs. So that was why that. You notice that mostly it's a very regular, it drops on the weekends and is busier during the week, which is pretty understandable. So.
You mentioned about Windows 10 earlier. Do you foresee us having to switch over eventually to like the Office 360 where it's more subscription model? But
Office 365 we have already, and we were able to get the free educational license for that.
Okay.
So very nice. That gives us Office and email. We most originally got it because we needed email because the previous consortium was closing down their email server, so we had to go somewhere else. So we went to Microsoft. But with that, we also got the Office 365. I know Microsoft is pushing doing Windows 10 as a subscription also, but I'm hoping we can stay out of that.
As long as we can.
Yeah, Adobe is pushing subscription for their software, and if you look, they've been making money hand over fist, setting all kinds of records because they're sucking customers dry, and I really hate that subscription model. I really prefer, I'll pay you, and now I've got it for as long as I want to use it. But unfortunately, that's not the future.
Seems they like a more steady revenue stream.
Shareholders do want the steady revenue stream instead of like, well, is this next version going to sell well or is it going to be a bomb? So I understand why it's happening. But so we got the Office 365. We're not paying for that one, so we're good on that one. The Windows 10, I don't know how long Microsoft's going to be able to continue just cranking out new versions and not paying for it. I don't know. But as long as it's that way, I'm not complaining. So, because I don't like spending money unless I really have to spend money.
Fair.
And if I remember correctly, we've got Office 2016 Resident on the computers, right? And we're using...
No, they actually relabeled it, so it's now labeled Office
Well,
365.
they relabeled, okay.
And it's supposed to, and one of the kind of annoyances for some people is that it keeps changing. It's supposed to now be equivalent to Office 2019 and continue to get updates. So Office 365 is supposed to always be absolute latest and greatest of Office, which means sometimes they decide to make changes to the way it looks and appears.
Do you find the changes dramatic? Like they were a few years ago?
Usually not
Really
super
big
dramatic.
Outlook was. The new Outlook was quite dramatic.
They're usually like little things at a time. The one thing that just driving me nuts right now is about April, May update. They changed the icons for all the Office, but it's not consistent. I've got machines that are identical machines, current upgrade, and they have different icons on them. It's like,
They
I
didn't
want you to
change
look the same.
menus or, where things,
Well, the menus have been pretty well scrapped for the ribbon, which,
right?
Not a fan.
what's
Not a
that?
fan
Not
of
a
the
fan of the
ribbon.
ribbon.
I thought the menu system was fine. What happened was Microsoft started asking a lot of their big customers, this is back before 2007, I think it was, when they came out with the ribbon, what features would you like added? And most of the stuff they got back from these customers, the stuff was already built in. So they said, well, obviously our menu system's not working. We have to come up with something different. I'm not sure that was a logical conclusion from that, but, you know, most people can get used to it, and I've got used to it, and it's just different. And most of us don't like getting things changed on us, you know, we're all kind of that way.
It looked like for the month of July, you had the most tickets regarding printers. Is that
That's probably every
typical?
month.
Is that, I was going to say, is that typical?
Printers can just always be, you know, and it could be for so many different reasons. I got a ticket that just came in tonight. I haven't had a chance to look at it. It says, it's reporting a paper jam, but we can't find a paper jam, and it's taking a long time to print. It's like, okay, nothing really definitive that I can know right where to go, so that's gonna be one that's gonna take some digging. But I also remember working with my boss, this is probably 15, 20 years ago. We had a paper jam on a Hewlett Packard printer, and it took us 4 hours before we finally found a sliver of paper that was causing all the problems. And finding that sliver of paper, I mean, it was just worse than finding a needle in a haystack. But, I mean, that's just sometimes the way it is, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross.
Okay.
Eric? You're next, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Is it okay if I sit here?
Yes,
Sure.
So I'll block your view. I'll kind of give you a rundown of our company. I'm not as technical anymore. About 15 years ago, I was still doing the tech work, but we have some great engineers that work for us now. So my name's Eric Rieger. I'm the founder and president of Web Services. We're a managed IT provider out of Naperville, Illinois. I started the company back in June of 1996. And I was a director of operations for a software company prior to starting Webbit. And one of the catalysts for me leaving was we treated our employees terrible, and we treated our clients terrible. And we grew from 8 to 80 people fairly quickly, and we were a family, and then we became a very dysfunctional family. And it was tough going to work, and I have kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, and I said, I can do better than this. And that was my business plan. So I started off on my own. And one of the clients that we have today, that's now actually one of our biggest clients out in San Jose, California, that I was just out there a couple weeks ago. They were technically the first client, not for managed services, but I had written some software for them. And when I left, the company was not going to support the software, so they called me and said, would you support it? And so you're starting a company and, hey, revenue, sure, I'll support it, and as long as they're not going to sue me for working on your stuff. And then that relationship kind of matured, and now a good 20 plus years later, they've grown from about 20 people to almost 120 people, and they have plans to double to almost 200 and some odd people within the next year. So they've had some dramatic growth. And like about 25% of our relationships, we work with existing internal IT. So there's really two ways we work with organizations. If they're on the smaller side and they don't have any internal resources, we are the outsourced IT department, soup to nuts, everything. And then in instances like this and in various flavors of this, depending on what the skill set of the internal IT team is, we augment that with our team. So it's a nice blend of intrinsic knowledge inside the organization for the internal staff, and then more of a broad scope of skill sets that we can marry together and, you know, get the best of both worlds and get better results for the organization. So we have almost 20 people now. Every time I seem to go out, they hire more people, and I come back and I keep getting squeezed into smaller and smaller space, and I'll be in the parking lot soon. But I think we've been working with the library a little over a year now, and part of what we do is we help augment what Ross does for the organization. As he mentioned, we're trying to get more involved on the reactive side, and, you know, leveraging our support team. All of our people are in our office in Naperville, so we don't have people overseas or anywhere else. They live in the community, they work for us, and we have a goal to become an employee-owned organization, and that's part of what helps us attract and retain top talent in the industry, because
Right now, there's about 1.5% unemployment in IT. So basically, if you're in IT and you don't have a job, maybe chef or something else would be good for you, because there's more jobs than there are really qualified people to fill them. And so we're all facing this war for talent right now. And so by creating an environment that is attractive to the top talent, giving them a stake in the ownership down the line, it attracts people who actually want a ownership mentality. We also are an open book finance company, so we share our financials with our team and we teach them about finance. And the reason we do this is a lot of times the technical people are very good at the technical aspects of their job, but sometimes they don't understand the business impact of the technical problems, and you can wind up having like a hammer in your toolbox and that's the only tool you have, and you're fixing the same problems over and over again. And when you start to understand in a for-profit business that has an impact on the bottom line, in a non-for-profit business it can take funds away from the mission, whatever that mission is, and now for you guys it's to serve the patrons. So we want to make sure that, you know, our team, when they're out and they're looking and we're helping with strategy and we're helping with problem solving, we're using data points and we're trying to understand the overall impact to the organization, so that the money that is available is used with the best return on investment. So I would love questions if you guys have any, or I can just keep talking about the company. It's up to you. I don't know what you expected or wanted from me, but I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have.
What percentage of your business is this shared experience, you know, where there is some in-house IT support and then web it augments that?
Sure. It's about 25% is the shared experience, the augmented.
And is it typically a one-person IT department?
It depends. The biggest one we have, I think, is about 12.
Oh, really?
And then the smallest would be a one-person shop. And it really varies. It usually is dictated by the size of the organization and or the function of whatever their business is that drives the need for either specialized IT people within the organization, very specialized skill sets, or if there's a generalist, then they're bringing us in for things like security or business continuity or, you know, things of that nature. And I will 100% support what Ross said about security. Is like, I mean, you can't turn the news on today without, and they are targeting municipalities, they're targeting our utilities. Part of what I've done in the past, one of my friends I went to high school with is now a very big wig in the oil and gas industry, and he came to me one day and said, let's have lunch. Homeland Security was at our office. And he goes, and by the way, they don't have a sense of humor, so if you ever encounter Homeland Security, they don't like comedy. And the two of us were kind of the class clowns, so, you know, he's like, don't mess with them when we talk to them. They had brought, so they make delivery systems for oil and gas. So Homeland Security showed up with plans for their delivery systems and how they've been weaponized. So the Homeland Security wasn't able to get into their organization, but they broke in through the supply chain and was able to obtain these plans. And so he's like, we have to talk about planning, business continuity, succession planning, because he travels all over the world. And at the time, you know, that was when everybody's in orange jumpsuits and people were doing bad things. And he goes, you could be one of those people. What happens to your infrastructure if you're captured? And that was like, I thought we were just having lunch, you know. So I went out and did some research, and I joined an organization called InfraGard, which is sponsored by Homeland Security and the FBI and CIA. I had to do a 3-month CIA background check just to get in. And so now we have a secure portal that we get messages from, that some information we can share, some we can't. But what Homeland Security designed it to do was to help IT providers and the IT community prepare for cyber attacks and things that are not public yet, so that we can do things to be as proactive as we possibly can. Some of it turns out to be noise, some of it turns out to be actionable. You have to, and when they're giving you information, you have to act on it as if it's good intel. And we're not in the business of determining good, you know, that's really above our pay grade in terms of, you know, what the government knows and what they don't know. But that conversation really kind of changed the course of our company in terms of, you know, really putting a security focus on everything. And, you know, Ross is right again, where a lot of times they will come into the environment and they will sit and watch. And they're targeting municipalities, they're targeting the utilities because it's the next battleground. Unfortunately, it's almost like a war now. And make no mistake, we're doing the same things to other countries too. So, the news tends to make it all innocent, like, oh, we're all under attack. Well, we're doing the exact same things if we can find a weak link, because, now you don't have to drop bombs on people. You can just cut their power supplies. You can cut their power grid, you can cut their water supply. I mean, it's dangerous stuff, and we take it very seriously, and that's part of the reason why we all get up in the morning and come to work is, we're definitely not putting ourselves up there with the military. Those people put their lives on the line every day, but we have a responsibility to those we serve, and we have a servant leadership mentality in our organization that when you're taking on the risk for a client, it's a shared risk now, and you have to do everything possible that you can to make sure you're communicating effectively, sharing information, and it's part of the planning process. So one of the things I would add to what Ross was saying about patching is definitely important. Your security endpoints, protection, firewalls, your backup business continuity solutions, all that stuff is important. One thing that I would add to that is end user training. The people are the weak link in the systems, because most of the time something that's going to be launched into your network is going to be somebody clicking on an email. I bet everybody in this room knows somebody who's clicked on, or has been that person, you don't have to raise your hands, has clicked on something and went, oh, what did I do? And so you want to have a layered approach to security, but there's things we can do to help you. We can provide security training portals, and we like to make it fun. So what we suggest doing is gamifying it. Everybody loves to play games and they love to win. And so one of the things you can do is, as you're rolling this training out, rather than focus on the people that are not doing so well in the training aspect, the people who are scoring high, reward them or acknowledge them in some way, shape, or form, because then the people who are down here, they want to most part be acknowledged. So those are some things that you can do to help the users, help the IT community make a stronger foundation.
What are some of the things that you do to support Ross and kind of specifically for us at the library? Ross mentioned the tickets are opened and closed by mostly him and internal, with a small percentage being done by your company. What are the other things that you're doing to support Ross?
Sure. Well, we're a backup in that regard. So the tickets, we provide the ticket system. We also have monitoring and alerting that are set up on all the systems. So if something is, it monitors like the Windows logs. If there's an incident or an event or something like that, it can open a ticket depending on the severity of it. We're watching that. We're helping with the backup systems. We have a different system in addition to the tape system. There's more of an image-based system that's in place. So there's different philosophies around backup and business continuity, and our philosophy is it should be driven by a couple things: recovery time objective and recovery point objective. So that if you don't have those defined, I would strongly recommend that in some session that we identify what's the recovery time objective if something happens critically, and what's the recovery point, how far back do we need to go. So some of that may be in line with what you're thinking and some might not be. So that would be a suggestion. The security aspect of it we're assisting with, and then projects, and then we also deploy an engineer in a proactive manner to come on site. And so we have a list of best practices that we've defined and we continue to refine, that we narrow down to each client's specific needs. And then the engineers will review that set of best practices, or at least a subset of them, when they're on site, and that helps drive the strategic conversations. And we have a strategic advisor that's assigned to the account as well. So you get the whole company, but there's two people that are dedicated to the account, one on the engineer side, one on the strategy side. And what we want to do ultimately is align you take the data points for what's not working, and you start to look for patterns and trends, and then that helps drive recommendations or changes that might need to be made, or looking for root causes, because you may be fixing things, but you're not fixing what's causing the problems. So we want to marry that with the 1, 3, and 5 year plan of the organizations we work with. So I know that there's I believe a 3-year plan that is revisited. So we want to make sure that technology is aligned with that plan. So as much as we can have a seat at the table to help, kind of give our 2 cents in terms of what we know, what Ross knows, what, the organization is trying to, and then let's marry all that together to get the best results and the best return on our investments. Because I agree too, as a business owner, I don't want to spend money I don't have to, but there's also the other side is you can cut corners and then it winds up costing you a lot more in the long run. And then that's where the hindsight's 20/20. You're like, oh, if we would have only done X, Y, or Z. So our job is to kind of help keep the car on the road. Because we do know you're working with limited funds and limited budgets, but at the same time, we have to maximize those investments to get the best return for the patrons and for the organization.
Do you ever do any sort of like penetration testing to try to get into our system and hack it at all?
There are tools that we run. There's a tool called Network Detective that'll do some of that. A penetration test, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So there are companies out there that's all they do, and most of the good ones will tell you that there are several factors that play into penetration testing. One is the penetration tester themselves. They all have different preferences. They all have different tools and methodology. So depending on who you get, it could change the results even if you use the same company and different people. With enough time and with enough money, anybody's going to get into anything.
Right.
And a good penetration testing company should tell you that. There's a point of demarcation in terms of how much money you should realistically spend to see how things are going. And then part of when we're running these assessment tools, if we find anything that's vulnerable, that will be brought up in discussions, and the reports can be available to anybody who wants to sit and look at them if you decide that that's what you want to do. But yeah, it's not a full penetration test though. That's a whole different animal. And there's both sides of the coin of what value it really brings to the organization. Again, in terms of how much money you want to spend and what your expectations are for that investment.
With this industry just being as fast-moving as it is, how do you, as the president of your company, keep your staff up to date? What kind of staff development do you provide for them?
Education. We reinvest a lot of our profits back into the company. I think at one point we were investing 5 to 6% of gross revenues back into the company as part of education. Everybody in our company has a LinkedIn Learning account. So LinkedIn was acquired by Microsoft, and they have about 90,000 training courses. So all the latest Microsoft stuff is going to be in a Microsoft-owned property. CompTIA is a nonprofit organization which is here in Downers Grove that we're a partner of. They've actually been out to our office and they're trying to help us with an intern program. But they're training the Security Plus, Network Plus. They're constantly developing new certifications, and it's the exposure and the awareness. So whenever we send a senior engineer out, we try if we can get a junior engineer out with them as well, so they get that exposure too. So there's training plans that are created by our management team for our engineers, and then that ties into their compensation, it ties into promotions and all that other stuff. So that's literally like the number one thing, because if you're not keeping up with the education, within 6 months, literally, you could fall so far behind. And that's kind of where I think some of the benefit of the partnership is whenever we're working with internal resources, because they have limited exposure to the environments they're in, and then they have to go and, Ross mentioned, we don't have a test facility here, so if he's going to learn new skills, it's either going to be on his own dime or he's got to set up a lab in his house. And a lot of people will do this, but it gets expensive. So having a partner that can expose you to those types of things is a benefit if you choose to use it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
I'm a little bit curious about your timeline for your employee-owned organization goal. Do you know what that looks like?
Yeah, we went open book in 2016. We've won a couple of awards for it now in the practice of it. We had set a goal of next year to start with somewhere between 2 and 5% of sale into an ESOP trust. I've been on the road a lot this year, and I've met people who have done this. When we started investigating, the original price we got from the company that was going to help us set this up was $100,000 to set up the trust. After we won a few awards, that price went up to $150,000. Because this year alone, we've been named a Forbes Small Giant, and we just got put on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies list at 2836. That gets out in the public, and then all of a sudden people think you have money because they equate that stuff to profit, and growth does not necessarily equal profit. But so as I started talking to people, there were a couple of companies I ran into that they did it an unorthodox way, or maybe a more traditional way until the trusts started coming up, where they actually just started selling shares to the employees direct, and they had like tangible ownership. There's legal complications with that. You don't get the tax benefits of it, so I'm still in the investigation stage, and it's part of our bonus structure where we said if we hit certain targets and maintain a certain level of customer satisfaction, that I don't know for sure what we need to do this. So everybody knows that even though 2020 is our target, we may run into these hurdles where somebody had promised us one thing and now the price went and changed, and we have to figure some things out. So that's why I keep in touch with, I do a lot of public speaking, and I go to these conferences just to absorb these things. But I would certainly like to see that happen in 2020, and then once that starts, I have a 10-year plan for selling out my shares, but I still will maintain some type of employment with the organization. I don't plan to, in our family, we pretty much work until you fall over, and I love what I do, so I may want to write a book or something someday, but I want to give back to the businesses that not only that we work with, but other ones that are struggling a little bit, because I figure another 10 years I probably will have learned another thing or two about business, and if I can help an organization that might be struggling to get started or something along those lines. I have a few coaches that do that now, and I'm like, it's pretty cool to see what they're doing. So, that's kind of my plan, at least for the next 10 years. And we all know how plans shift and change, but yeah. Thank you for
Eric,
asking.
I haven't heard the term ESOP in a very long time.
There aren't a lot of them.
There aren't. I mean, that's why I'm
Yeah.
very pleased to hear you
Well,
bring that up. It's a good
teasing.
employee incentive.
Yeah, there's the National Center for Employee Ownership. We're a member of that as well, and so we get the newsletters and all that. They were super excited at the beginning of the year because there was teasers of the current administration was going to make it very favorable for employers to roll out ESOPs, other tax incentives and things like that, and then they pulled the carrot away. And then you could just see in the newsletter kind of the balloon deflate, and it's like, oh, we're back to square one. And I'm like, well, if your heart's in the right place and you're doing it for the right reasons, like the tax incentives are just like a cherry on top of the sundae. For me personally, when I started getting to peer groups, the first thing they ask you is, what's your exit strategy? And I'm like, die? I literally didn't have an exit strategy. I'm like, you just work until you can't work anymore. And they're like, well, that's not going to attract people to your company. And I'm like, okay, well, I was in my late 20s, early 30s. I'm like, I got time. And they're like, do you? I'm like, what do you know? Like, who are you talking to? You can talk to my doctor. But they were really hammering home the part about, like, as you're building an organization, if you're going to sell it, you have to know in your mind who you're going to sell it to, because that's the kind of organization you need to build. And I'm just like, you look around and you hear about corporate America and CEOs making 50, 100 gross amounts of money. And I'm like, well, I'm certainly not going to sell what we've built to a chain. This is the lifeblood of myself and then the great team that we have. And then we got this open book thing, and then the ESOP, and I was exposed to all this, and I'm going, well, sell it to the people who built it. Who else is going to take care of it better than the people who have skin in the game? So that's been the plan, and that's what we use for recruiting. We use it when we're talking to prospective clients. I don't have a sales team. I do all the interviews of prospective clients. We only work with 2 new clients a month because we don't want to overburden our team, and we want to be able to give people attention. We don't always get it right. We make mistakes like everybody else. But I think, pound for pound, you put our team up against anybody in terms of what's inside them. And they're really good people that, they give it their all, and they want to make a difference. And that's why the nonprofit sector is one of our main vertical focuses. We're very community oriented, very, very strong roots. Even though we have clients in 6 states, that was kind of by accident. They grew and they started expanding, and we're like, most of them, with the exception of that California client, are within an hour of our office. And that's by design.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay, so we will move on to item number 8. We have financial reports. That would be Joe.
Joe was called out of town, so he gave a report to me to share with you.
Okay.
So he said the fiscal year 2018-2019 results have not changed, and there will be approximately $44,000 added to the reserve in the library fund. The auditors will be back for field work September 5th and 6th. And the new software is working well. He's able to run checks and make entries to the general ledger at a comfortable level. He's still working on defining reports. He has several additional short training sessions to complete the entry of the budget to the system, and eventually to enter opening balances after the completion of the audit. And he's working hard on that new system, and it can do so much more than our old system, and he's the right guy to be doing this for us. He's
And be sure
a
to
great
tell
guy.
Joe that I really like the new check register format. It's so much easier to read. There's so much more white space, and it's just a lot easier on our eyes.
I'll be happy to do that.
And just to note too, from the yellow working budget, that through the year to date, not only the 44,000, that's about 44 that's going additionally into the reserve, almost over 695,000 went into the reserves this year, due to some special revenues and the closing of Link.
Link
And-
involving in the bond.
And the
fund,
bond.
yeah.
And every expense except 2 were at least under budget or way over budget. So,
It looks good.
yeah, it did look good.
Yeah. Thank you, Jenny. Okay. Do we have to do this?
That's included in his reports.
That's the green sheet.
The
Yeah,
investment.
that's the green sheet, yeah. He provides all that for information, yeah.
Okay, then item B under item 8 is a resolution designating BMO Harris Bank as an authorized depository of Batavia Public Library District and related matters.
This is on the regular agenda because, instead of the consent agenda, because we did not have a finance committee meeting. And it seemed appropriate if you had any questions about this massive compilation of words, to give you the opportunity to ask any questions you might have. So,
I'm just glad that the attorney looked it over because it was a massive compilation of words.
yeah,
Do we have to do anything to?
the board needs to approve this, and I forgot to put on here, but it should be a roll call vote.
A roll call vote, okay, so then I
So
will.
I'll move to approve it.
Okay, and need a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Kate. And then we'll need a roll call vote.
Blodgett, Coletta,
Aye.
Garrett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
McKenzie,
Aye.
Russo, I, Smith.
Aye. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, and that came about, I mean, I know we just approved it because of the change in signatories, right?
There's a convoluted story which I'll keep down to like 40 seconds for you.
Good,
It's,
okay.
it wasn't the change in signatories that really had anything to do with this. It was the fact that in order to create a sweep account for the new credit card processing system for our self-checks, we needed to open a new account, which would be our third account with BMO Harris, which we've banked with for a long, long time. And somehow opening up that new account triggered somebody in a higher office someplace. It's like, what is Batavia Public Library and what do we know about them? And It led to,
We're across the street.
I know,
and they,
you might have seen the building.
That's right.
and they wanted to treat us, they said, well, you don't have anything on file with the Secretary of State's office. And I said, that's because we're not a not-for-profit organization, we're a unit of government. And I said, he says, well, we need, some kind of documentation. And I said, you tell me what it is and I'll see if I can't find it.
Okay.
And this has been going on for about 2 months.
Don't worry.
So this, I hope, is the last thing that we need to
Okay.
do.
All right, item number 9 is President's Report. I really have nothing new to report on. Item 10, good news, comments from the board. Do we have any good news or comments from anybody?
Just a reminder from the foundation, even though they didn't have a meeting this month, that the Mark Twain event is in September, so everyone should buy tickets.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it's in our reports, but September is Library Card Sign-Up Month, so to finish setting up for school, everyone needs to get a library card. And, with library cards, I really like to mention that the library card works when the library's closed with the online resources, so it's a great opportunity.
And once you have it entered, your library card number, you set it up so your computer remembers it. You never have to put it in.
I'd like to just shout out for just the ongoing access that we have through our different subscriptions. I was talking to Stacy this past week. I didn't know that we had access to all the LinkedIn Linda learning courses that were mentioned. So for those of patrons who are not aware of that, it's a fantastic subscription model that we have through those courses and the Guild courses and the others. So
no excuse for not continuing to learn.
No excuse, exactly.
Right.
I've been really enjoying Canopy, likewise.
Yes.
All
right,
those
Canopy as well.
fabulous movies you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
They're great.
Okay, number 11, correspondence and communications. I'm sure you all received the one letter we got from the city.
Only one this time. And this was produced, the document that says where was Revere House in relation to Batavia Public Library. There have been some questions from patrons to particularly the checkout desk about the Revere House, which is the one that is pictured on the backdrop for Mark Twain. And so that question came to me, and so I produced a little map based on an old fire insurance map showing where Revere House was. And then I realized that the library has been in several other locations on the same street. So I, just as a little extra fun for the staff, I pointed all those out, and I thought you'd enjoy a copy. So.
Okay, thank you, George. Director and librarians reports.
The report is in your packet. Again, there's an update on the goals in here as well. I wanted to mention that the new partnership with the Batavia Park District as a co-sponsor of Cha Night Batavia is moving along very nicely. The Park District's being very supportive. Several members of the Cha Organizing Committee were at Shannon Hall today doing sort of a test setup to see how everything would work there, and it's working very well, in fact. And it actually gives us an opportunity to use a gift that came to the library several years ago in the form of a 10-foot by 10-foot screen, which John Gamble, a local realtor, donated to the library, and we kept it, thinking that at some point we, maybe in the reading garden could show a movie or something, but we realized that that's a perfect screen for that space in Shannon Hall, so we actually figured out how to set that up, which was not nearly as easy as we thought it would be. It's easy once you know how, I guess, and so we set that up today, and so everything is coming along really fine. So October 24th will be the new launch, the relaunch of Cha Night Batavia with the Batavia Park District in Shannon Hall. So And also, we've talked a lot about keeping the promise from the referendum and following up on our Speak Up recommendations. And so my column, which will be coming out in beginning of September in Neighbors, focuses on some aspects of how we're keeping that promise. So I wanted to give you a sneak preview, which is in the report as well. And so that's just some highlights from me. I can answer questions if you've got them, or we can move on to Joanne.
I think that the keeping the promise is a really important message to send to our community, so thank you for that, George. Joanne?
Good evening. Daniel, thanks for reminding us about library card sign-up month. Great commercial there. We went to a few schools on their books back to school and get their supplies back in school. Amanda worked out a schedule with Stephanie and Pam Kamen in circulation, and a YS member teamed with a circulation member, and we went to part of the coming in day, new student day at Rotolo, and went to several of the other elementary schools and registered more than 40 library cards. So that was great. And circulation, Stephanie had worked out being able to do library cards right on an iPad. And so they could get their library cards that evening. And so that was very good. So we're going to look to do more of that. That was a great time. Everybody was very excited to walk in school with their backpacks and get their library cards. So it was a great time. So first time we had done those particular events. We are going to some curriculum nights as well, but that was great. Well, my report is kind of long this time, 2-pager. There are many highlights of Summer Reading Club as well as from this past fiscal year. And Summer Reading Club participation was up just slightly with 1,263 children participating. Over 87% went on to a second level, and over 73% went on to finish all 3 levels. So we were very happy with those numbers. All of those numbers were a little bit higher than in past years, and we were very happy to see that participation. Amanda has already sent out all the kids' names to all the schools. And so we had I was at Louise White, I believe, that night, and the LRC director came up to one little girl who happened to be talking to us at our table and said, "Hey, we posted your name. You were in Summer Reading Club." And the real girl was very excited that her LRC director knew that she had participated, and she was very proud of her reading achievement. So that was really great. I also wanted to take just a couple things out of my board report. We had 44 very generous sponsors. And you think as you're giving out those coupon packets, and we realize not all of those coupons are going to get used, but over $250,000 worth of coupons were distributed through Summer Reading Club. So that is an amazing amount. And those sponsors are very generous, and we're very fortunate to have them. And as I mentioned, as I gave a couple comments from participants, people really do appreciate that, and families really do appreciate that those sponsors are sponsoring Summer Reading Club and just giving their children a little incentive to keep on going and see what's coming up. Although I will tell you that I'm passing around pictures, as I usually do, and there's some very cool color-changing cups that were also part of the rewards this year that were very, very fondly thought of. The posters that I'm sending around include some of our Reader's Theater actors and set designers mugging for the camera there. Our latest group of 1,000 books before kindergarten participants who graduated. That means they read at least 1,000 books and haven't quite gotten to kindergarten yet. And our observations are currently our very popular butterfly station. And we have already released 2 butterflies. If you didn't see that on Facebook, that was very exciting. So we have, it is very interesting to see the people come down and the kids really think it's great, and then the parents just really sit there and watch and kind of try to figure out the whole process. So thanks to Amy Hahn, because she keeps us staged with eggs and then little caterpillars and great big caterpillars and chrysalis, and we have almost every stage of life there. Just on the second page of my report, just a few highlights from this fiscal year. And you can read all the stats. Some of them I mentioned during the board retreat, so I won't go through the stats, but I do feel I need to just make mention of two groups of individuals who really contribute and help contribute to make YS a great place to come to. First, our middle school volunteers. We had 61 middle schoolers volunteering at the library since last September, and through our beginning of August was when they finished for their summer. They donated over 450 hours to youth services, did everything from cutting crafts, making copies, helping with special events, reading to children. The Book Buddies program is one of the most enjoyable programs to watch, the readers reading to the middle school students. And they were a great group of volunteers all year long. They're conscientious, very respectful, and they were a huge help to the department. So we do a shout out to our middle school volunteers, did a great job. And I also I mentioned them in my report, and I know we all appreciate the staff that works here, that came out of the community engagement, that the staff are very highly thought of. And I really do want to make send thanks to all the individuals who truly do make our YS department a very special place for children. Our youth services staff members, Ruth Arrett, Jolene Batek, Jen Connon, Amy Hahn, Kathleen Redmond, Mary Steskel, and Amanda Vanderwerth. And it's through their hard work and creativity and dedication that we can offer so many quality programs and services. Without them, we wouldn't be having over 100 programs during the summertime, or we wouldn't be watching butterflies turn into, and it's my privilege to be a part of that team and a part of the library. So just a few highlights from this year and this summer, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I'd like to just highlight a line that you put in your report from one of the parents of a student who received prizes, and the person writes, "The prizes really helped our family do fun things." And I thought that was such a great quote, because it shows it's not just the incentive for the student, but it really helps the family too. So that's a great highlight that you put in.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Next, adult services, Stacy. I know what you
I know, it's a banner evening. And adult services comes in with props. All right. My report was particularly long this month as well, because I did a fiscal year recap. So you can read all about the wonderful work that our team of librarians and technical assistants and home delivery assistants have done over the past year. Every single person in the department is named by name for special projects that they initiated and carried out in the past year. And I'm so proud of that team and for the work that they've done on behalf of our patrons and our community. On the second page of the fiscal year recap is nearly a full page of community connections and collaborations that Adult Services has made. So I also just wanted to give a shout out to the community, because we're so fortunate to be working within a community that is so collaborative and open to having these connections with the library. Also in the report are some of the services, the new services that were mentioned earlier. Canopy came about the end of the last fiscal year, LinkedIn Learning, lynda.com, the beginning of this fiscal year. Those are a couple things that we're really excited to be offering. In the year ahead, we're looking forward to more things that are going to be checked out as a library of things, and also working on a maker space and kind of creative space and some more collaborative spaces. So we're really excited about the year ahead. Let's talk about these objects. All right, so cake pans are launching. We have here a dump truck and a butterfly. I'll send them around. These are in the cases in which they're going to be checked out. Our technical services department did a wonderful job cataloging them and packaging them for us. They're going to be kept in the cabinet back near the reference desk. And they'll be available after our launch event this Saturday. So Saturday, August 24th, 2 o'clock until 3 o'clock will be our launch event. We're going to be really highlighting the 2 Girl Scouts whose Silver Award project initiated this
They better
whole
get it
collection.
after this.
They've done a wonderful job. They're providing the cake we're serving. We're doing a cakewalk. Addison and Genevieve have done a wonderful job. I also wanted to thank Elizabeth for putting us in contact with Wilton, the cake pan company, who have a charitable arm. So Elizabeth mentioned that this was in existence. We passed along the information to the Girl Scouts, who applied for a grant and received 10 really beautiful brand new cake pans that will be part of the collection. So it was a wonderful opportunity for the Scouts to make that kind of connection, to basically do kind of grant writing at that age. It was a delight to see. So we're really appreciative, thank you. So the cake pans are going to be available for checkout beginning after the event on Saturday. And we have about 30 different pans, wide variety. You can preview the list of them if you go into the library catalog and look up Batavia cake pan. There's a list. It's in alphabetical order, of course, because we're librarians, and they will be shelved in alphabetical order. So they're easily findable, of course. So we're really excited about this.
So what are you gonna do?
How long can they be checked out?
They're going to go out for 2 weeks,
2 weeks.
And they'll have the standard 2 renewals,
Oh, okay.
as long as someone does not have a hold.
Oh, okay.
They'll be holdable only for Batavia card holders, but if a card holder from another library walks through the doors to pick it up, they will be allowed to check it out. They just cannot place a hold.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we're doing that then.
Are you treating it like a pilot program, or is this the first foray into an ongoing exploration of Library of Things? And then what's the process then to determine what the next thing is? And you had the Girl Scouts who were part of that, so how do other groups then get involved in suggesting what things may be?
We're meeting next week to discuss those very issues. I have a list of questions that that is longer than the answers right now. And because one of the things we want to do is get feedback from the community as to what things would actually be the most useful and relevant. We know what other libraries have done. We also know that it really varies very widely from community to community what really resonates. So we want to make sure that we're putting the effort where it really is going to make the most impact.
Right.
So we'll be taking a look at that, and then I hope doing some outreach. George and I were just talking this afternoon about one possibility, which I won't say because it involves, we don't know if they want to partner with us. I'm sure they do. So that's going to be something really exciting over the year ahead, and we've got a meeting to kind of kick off the whole process next week.
Great.
Exciting stuff.
It is.
It's interesting in Batavia, things sort of went away, and it's fun to see them coming back. 'Cause we have in our library archive a Polaroid camera that we used to check out. So the library checked out a variety of things, and they all sort of went away, and now they're...
Is that still usable, the Polaroid? I think
actually-
that would be fun to play with.
Well, actually, they still make instant
Right,
camera, Polaroid cameras, and some libraries I heard from a colleague are in fact still checking out Polaroid cameras.
Okay.
This was a national program that Polaroid actually had grants where libraries could get them for free, and so we kept one. All the rest of them got discarded or disposed of appropriately at some point, but we kept one as a reminder that
To do that.
yeah, the library's got an interesting history. So yeah.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, Stacy.
Okay, item 13, committee and official representative reports. Kate?
Yeah.
Committee and facilities.
Let me pull open my notes here. Some of the stuff we talked about at the the facilities committee were already on consent agenda. That included restriping the parking lot and the Scan EZ, both of which we approved. Fabulous. There are a couple of things that we discussed that are sort of ongoing discussions. I'll just apprise you all of. King County is investigating a bike share system. They wanted to know if we wanted to participate. We are not sure whether we want to participate or not, but we cautiously expressed our interest in being kept in the loop. So we'll see how that goes. We are working on the triennial update of the capital assets study, and as part of that, we're going to include some investigation of a few new items, including electric vehicle charging stations, solar and wind energy solutions possibly as well, which is very exciting. And something we talked about putting into the capital asset study and then decided to go ahead and move forward with, probably in a different way, is some collaborative technology for group study room. So this was a concern or a request that was brought up to the library a couple of years ago, and we weren't able to move forward on it then, but we'd like to try to find a way to do it now. And then the Circle Drive, there was some discussion of optimizing the layout of the Circle Drive to make it a little more user-friendly and to solve the flooding and pooling problem that's happening at the back door, the staff entrance, which is making that a very unsafe access point. So we're going to continue to discuss that and see if we can find the most fiscally responsible and safe solution going forward.
Today was a good day to actually see what it looks like.
Not bad.
Oh dear, yeah.
Because it rained so hard. I actually took a photograph this morning, well, about noon, and there really were two large pools. There was one at the entryway to the library down there, and then there was a dry gap, and then there was a big pool next to the plaza that you step off to get over. So it's a solution that we're getting a proposal on from BTC will solve the one by the door, but it won't solve the one by the plaza, where the bike rack is. So we'll have a further discussion on that
Right.
at an upcoming facilities committee.
Further discussion pending.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
Oh, I think you covered
got it.
it all. Perfect. Thank you, Kate. Standing Committee on Services, we did meet. We had 3 items on our agenda. I'm going to save one for last, but one was a program called Batavia Counts, which I just love that name, and I hear, Stacy, you were responsible for that. That was wonderful. But anyway, it is a committee to make sure that in the 2020 census, every single one of us in our community are counted, and Joanne Zillman is heading up that part of that committee, at least for the library. And it's a collaborative program with lots of other entities in the community. So I think that's a really good thing to be doing. The second was Explore More Illinois. And that is a program where you can get actually free tickets to certain Illinois attractions, and you can get that through the library. The thing that we spent the most time on at our services meeting was a presentation from HR Source, which gave us an executive overview of the Employment Engagement Survey. And did everyone get a copy of that?
Everyone was given a copy.
Okay, so just some highlights from that. I think as part of the Services Committee, we will be going more in depth into the actual comments and the things that went into the executive summary. But as far as employee engagement, they break things into engagement and satisfaction. And they have really good definitions for that. But as far as employee engagement goes, 49% of our employees are engaged and 51 are partially engaged, as compared to the National Engagement Index, which showed 35% engaged and 59% partially engaged and 6% disengaged. So as far as our results, at that high level, it looked pretty good. And the satisfaction results are also, pretty good. That would be this page in your reports. I'm not going to go through all of the percentages, but again, I think the Services Committee wants to dig, do a little deep dive into the data that supports the report.
And overall satisfaction was at 82%, which the consultant said was very high.
Right, and the other really, really positive thing, in my opinion, was that there was a 97% participation rate. So of all the employees in the library, I mean, to me, that speaks of some engagement as well. So anyway, so that is the report from the Services Committee. Any questions? Any additions?
Great tool. Great tool. Yeah. It's a great tool.
And we have a report from Pat Leonard and from BATV from the meeting that she attended. That's on this kind of salmon colored paper.
They're busy.
They are busy. Yes. They seem to be really making some moves. That's good.
There's this new show talking about the first season of Stranger Things.
Oh,
I saw that too.
I'm gonna watch that one.
Well, yeah.
Any other comments? We have Stranger Things fans. The third season was interesting.
I haven't finished it.
Oh, all right. All right, we'll move on. We'll move on to item 14.
Well, I was going to mention, although there was no Friends meeting, my memory is that there was a book sale had revenue of over $1,400 last Saturday, which was a very good month.
They also made just under $300 with the educator sale the weekend before, and books were half price for anyone who works with kids, so teachers, daycare teachers. So books are selling for 25 cents a piece. When you consider they did like $280 in
Right.
revenue from that sale, that's a lot of books that got into the hand of teachers.
And they open that up to homeschoolers as well. So
Anyone who works with
Yeah,
kids, mentors, daycare, preschools, so that's a lot of books into the schools.
I don't know if this is a question for Stacy or for Pat, but I can't remember. I've been to a Lyceum. I was at the one where the director of Hesed House was here.
No, it was good.
I can't remember, do any of those get recorded and broadcast on BATV? Do we have any of those programs that are ever?
Occasionally, I don't know that we have film of those.
Okay.
Books Between Bites Bar is at all of those events, like clockwork. And for other presentations, occasionally, sometimes there are presenters who do not wish to have
Sure.
their presentations because it's their livelihood and they don't want to put it out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, item 14, future agenda items.
Planning tool for the snapshot of the year ahead. Levy's coming up pretty soon.
And
Just
then
like
item
clockwork.
15, just our next meetings and events. So we can just kind of take a glance through those.
What's on the docket for the staff development day?
I'm going to defer to our chair of that event, Joanne.
You're on again.
We have a speaker coming. Her name is Michelle Peterson. She is talking about customer service. Her title of her program is Not Who But How. She is currently also working at a library. But oh, Helen Plum and Lumber. She is at Helen Plum. And so it's nice to have a library person coming and doing that kind of a workshop. We'll be having Batavia Police Commander Eric Flowers is coming and talking about giving us kind of a refresher on emergency procedures, run, hide, fight. As far as active shooter, we've also updated those procedures and wrote new procedures for lockdown procedures for the library. So we'll be doing, we always have an emergency procedures component to our day, so that will be part of that day. And another activity will be for the afternoon is Lisa Moore and her committee have put together some mini workshops that our staff will have had the opportunity to pick from to participate in. They're short little 15-minute workshops. We have one on yoga and meditation, relaxation methods. We have one on managing debt and not staying out of debt. We have our own Stacy Cisneros doing Stacy Peterson doing a lynda.com workshop on that. We have someone from the Tea Tree coming to tell us about tea, and we have John Batek coming and is telling us how to prep for a bike trip across the country, if you want to ride your bike across the country. So we have some great programs planned, so.
Sounds like a fun meeting.
It's going to be an active day.
Sounds like it. Great planning.
Thank you, Joanne. Okay, anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Then I move to adjourn, you second, and I adjourn this meeting at 8:27.